As a sliver of frigid moonlight in 1260 slanted across the shimmering gold-ground mosaics of the Hagia Sophia in Trebizond, the air was saturated with a tang of salt spray and the lingering warmth of incense. Within an office encased by heavy stone walls, where the rhythm of the tides against the cliffs served as a constant pulse, an old man with silvering hair and eyes as deep and tranquil as the sea sat before a guttering oil lamp. He was not reviewing the heavy cavalry that once dreamt of reconquest. Instead, upon a creased sheet of parchment, he used a charcoal stylus to sketch the fractured dome of Constantinople, a home that no longer belonged to him. Now in his twilight years, he had spent a lifetime in this besieged coastal bastion, guarding a Roman dream that had splintered into 1,000 shadows. He was Manuel I, the Grand Komnenos of the Empire of Trebizond. This is a chronicle of how despair was transmuted into a perpetual vigil. The genesis of Manuel I's life held none of the grandeur associated with a central throne. Rather, it was a foundation of deep azure woven from the salt-laden winds of exile and the quiet sighs of a displaced dynasty. As a scion of the House of Komnenos, he inherited a miniature empire, forced to take root on the shores of the Black Sea after the tragic fall of the Queen of Cities. In those days, Trebizond's survival was balanced on a precipice, a narrow strip of land where any misstep meant an abyss. Young and elegant, he eschewed the blind vengeance favored by his kinsmen, turning instead to the intellectual cultivation of this rugged earth. This near-obsessive pursuit of micro-order became his sole weapon for preserving his realm amidst a chaotic world. He understood that true prosperity was not snatched back through bloody crusades, but was a truth that grew naturally from an ultimate reverence for commerce, faith, and the integrity of every single stone. If his early obscurity was the slow sedimentation of wisdom, then his diplomatic maneuvering during the Mongol tides that swept across Asia was the practical zenith of his aesthetic of the vigil. Unlike other lords who chose the path of suicidal confrontation, he met the formidable commanders of the East with his mosaic craftsman, his coin, and a priestly robe so immaculate it was unsettling. By accepting a nominal vassalage, he purchased decades of tranquility for this final Byzantine island. This was a strategy devoid of thunderous roars, yet it transmuted raw survival into a masterful intellectual gambit played amidst the coastal mists. Frequently, in the deep of night, he would inspect the unfinished Hagia Sophia. If a pigment in a fresco lacked purity, he would demand the ore be reground. In those hours, Manuel I was the most solitary yet steadfast artisan of the Black Sea. Man of letters. The summit of power is often reflected in the immortality of art. Manuel gradually realized that as Trebizond blossomed into a nexus of trade, he had gained not just stability, but a void born of witnessing the ebb and flow of empires. He discovered that the grand, arrogant imperial ideals of old possessed, in the face of pragmatic commerce, a silence more potent than any rhetoric. This transition, returning from the dream of Constantinople regained to the reality of Trebizond preserved, was fraught with intellectual tension, yet it endowed him with a nearly transparent, chilling composure. He mused in his journals, "I once believed I was waiting for a homecoming, now I find I am merely searching within the crevices of scarred marble for a point of convergence where the soul no longer falls." This expansive clarity, born of seeing beyond glory and ruin, became the unyielding armor of his twilight years. The final days of Manuel I were spent in a state of profound solemnity and a silence illuminated by the radiance of a sage. At the dawn of 1263, the fine rains of Trebizond fell without a sound. By now, Manuel's body had grown exceedingly light, his once resplendent robes hanging loosely upon a frail skeletal frame. In his final moments of clarity, he waved away the medicine of his attendants, requesting instead to be carried to the window to listen to the final cadence of the Black Sea. He closed his eyes, and with those hands that had held 10,000 levers of power and touched 10,000 mosaic tiles, he traced one last, minuscule arc of restraint upon his knees. The tides of the Euxine carried away the last sigh of this noble sovereign, leaving behind a wisdom of the vigil that remains searing even 7 centuries later, the weightiest fragment of a dream gifted to the world. Even today, the name of Manuel I remains the sole sanctuary for many a restless seeker in the dead of night. What he left behind was not a triumphal column piercing the heavens, but a spiritual template for self-restraint. He teaches us that even if the entire world besieges you with clamor, the order within your heart is governed solely by your own perception of truth. He was one of those rare creators in history who truly mastered the art of transcending despair, maintaining absolute lucidity amidst absolute shadow. Beneath the foundations of the church, its edges now softened by history, he remains in a posture of eternal contemplation. Manuel's quiet vigil over the ruins has crossed the boundaries of geography and time, living on in every soul that yearns for reality and the unknown. The saga of Manuel I thus draws to a slow close amidst the fading whispers of the Black Sea waves. He was never an opportunist seeking fame, he was merely a weary soul who steadfastly refused to compromise with mediocrity. He reminds us that no matter how mundane your life may be, inner tranquility is your only true and eternal refuge. just as he sat through the coldest winter nights, clutching a guttering candle to find a fulcrum for existence within the void. Perhaps you, too, are navigating the uncertainties of life at this moment. But believe this, in every life, there exists a silent season, a private space for dialogue with the self. May the serenity and vastness of Manuel become the softest feather in your dreams, carrying you toward that most peaceful and expansive shore of the inner soul. Good night.